my channel, I talk a lot about the Russian Orthodox Church for an obvious reason. No matter how you count, it is the largest, the most powerful, and the most influential religious community in Russia. But are there other Christian churches? How big and influential are they? Before talking about minority Christian groups, let me remind you about other religions as well. Russia is one of the most multi-ethnic and multicultural countries in the world. Due to exploration, colonization, conquest, and geopolitical maneuvers, many people indigenous to vast Russian lands hold very different religious beliefs. Roughly every sixth person in Russia is a Muslim. There is also a significant Buddhist, Judaic, and pagan population. When it comes to political influence, the dominating Russian Orthodox Church has to make significant concessions to Islam in the religious sphere. Some predominantly Muslim regions, like Chechen Republic or Dagestan, have a substantial political power even apart from the religious aspect. When it comes to Christianity, the Orthodox Church is obviously the largest and the strongest, but not the only significant Christian church. Let's discuss the most impactful Christian groups in Russian history, culture, and contemporaneity. First, the Russian Orthodox Church is the biggest but not the only Orthodox community in Russia. Historically, there have been many groups dissatisfied with the Church on the issues of theology, governance, and relationships with the state. The most significant and notable schism occurred in the 17th century, when a part of the church led by married archpriests rejected the ecclesiastical reforms of Patriarch Nikon. They immediately faced fierce persecution, and eventually many of them spread all over the world, seeking refuge and isolation. These dissenters became what we now call Old Ritualists or Old Believers. They do not form one unified community, rather it is an umbrella term for very different and theologically incompatible churches and accords with roots in the schism of the 17th century. See a video about Old Believers on my channel. Next, there have been quite a few smaller schisms and splits from the Orthodox Church. Most notably, after the Bolshevik Revolution, the state-initiated schism of renovationism and the movement for the obedience and cooperation with the anti-Christian Soviet state, known as Sergianism, many parishes or groups of Orthodox believers left the church and formed alternative ecclesiastical bodies, for instance, the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, True Orthodox Church, Catacomb Church, and the like. Earlier, in the 19th century, some dissenters formed communities that very much resembled evangelical Protestants. They rejected priesthood, complicated liturgy and ecclesiology, and focused on studying the Bible. Some of the most notorious groups are Molokanie, whose name refers to the Bible as the spiritual milk, in the words of Apostle Paul, Duchabori and Khlisty, who resemble Pentecostals by their emphasis on the works of the Holy Spirit and worship practices, and Skaptsi, who practiced castration as a spiritual practice, referring to the words of Jesus in Matthew 19:12, who mentioned eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Most of these groups still exist today, but many live outside of Russia, seeking refuge from the persecution. In the second half of the 19th century, many adherents of these groups joined newly emerged evangelical churches. Protestants have lived in Russia for centuries, mostly representing foreign diasporas coming to Russia as merchants, craftsmen, or skilled specialists. Since Peter the Great, many people of a foreign origin with a Protestant or Catholic background also joined aristocratic, military, or scholarly circles. In the second half of the 19th century, after the translation of the Bible into the then modern Russian language, Russian evangelicalism started growing. There were three main directions in which the evangelical movement launched. First, Ukraine has always been the buffer between Orthodox Russia and her Catholic and Protestant rivals in the West. Under the influence of German Baptists and Dutch Mennonites, there were groups of so-called Stundisten, called by the German word Stunde, that is, an hour or a Bible study. They were focused on the thorough study of the scriptures. The second direction was the mountainous Caucasus region, where many of the Orthodox sects that I have talked about were exiled. As I have already said, many believers' understandings of their faith resonated with evangelicalism, and they joined these churches. The third direction was the capital city of St. Petersburg. An English missionary, Lord Radstock, and the wealthy aristocrat Vasily Pashkov, his convert, started evangelical communities in aristocratic circles. Eventually, they converted not just their noble friends, but also their servants and people from all walks of life. During their meetings, everyone was considered equal, which was outrageous and unthinkable in a highly stratified imperial Russian society. By the early 20th century, evangelicals formed four major churches: the Baptist Church, Pentecostal Church, Church of Seventh-day Adventists, and the Church of Evangelical Christians. After the persecution by the Orthodox state and after the Bolshevik Revolution, they enjoyed a brief period of freedom, being seen as anti-Orthodox allies. However, this ended soon with Stalin's terror, and the leadership of all communities was destroyed, executed, or sent to gulags. During the raging World War, Stalin's government decided to revisit its religious policy. After restoring the leadership of the Russian Orthodox Church under total state control in 1943, they also authorized an evangelical union. Since initially only one union was allowed, evangelicals were forced to merge. The Baptist Church and the Church of Evangelical Christians had minor theological differences and merged without major issues. Most of them are still the same community, officially called the Church of Evangelical Christians-Baptists. Later on, in 1946, Adventists were also allowed to register a union. Some Pentecostals interested in legalization also joined the Baptist Union, but due to irreconcilable differences in theology and worship practices, they soon left it. The whole Pentecostal community went underground until the end of the Soviet regime and faced persecution. When it comes to the registered Baptist Church, in 1961, during Khrushchev's anti-religious campaign, the union split into two parts over the issue of obedience to the restrictive state legislation. A significant part refused to obey the laws prohibiting Sunday schools, missions, baptism of the youth, and even church attendance for children. They founded an alternative union and went underground. Underground Baptists and Pentecostals faced severe persecution. In turn, they unfolded unprecedented dissident campaigns. See a video about these religious dissidents on my channel. In the mid-1980s, Mikhail Gorbachev launched Perestroika and liberalized Soviet society, which also included the freedom of religion. The culmination of this liberalization was a statewide celebration of the millennium since the Christianization of Russia in 1988. The persecution of underground evangelicals ended, and they started to actively evangelize the local population and indigenous people in the faraway lands. See a video about their missions on my channel. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the religious awakening peaked. Apart from already existing churches facing a huge wave of conversions from God-seekers, new religious groups appeared in big numbers. Some groups of a foreign origin were introduced or reintroduced into Russia, for example the Mormons. Some groups were homegrown or of a mixed origin. The most notable phenomenon was many different charismatic and neo-Pentecostal churches. Most of them were very unusual even for Russian Pentecostals, known for their ecstatic worship practices and speaking in tongues. Some of the new groups were very liberal and controversial. They had female pastors, faith healing, modern worship music, and active social ministries. Apart from genuine Christian congregations, there were many fraudulent groups hypnotizing and brainwashing their followers for profit. Many evangelical and charismatic ministries launched back then are still active today. The most notable ones I discussed on my channel are the prison ministry and the rehabilitation ministry for addicted people. The traditional Protestant churches of a foreign origin, like Finnish, Swedish or German Lutherans, have not just survived but also enjoyed a big wave of neophytes. Nowadays, the majority of people in some of these churches are local Russian converts who worship mostly in Russian. As for Catholics, traditionally most of them were also of a foreign origin, Polish, Lithuanian or German. Nowadays, many of Russian Catholics are converted Russians who came to this ancient faith through intellectual God-seeking and admiration for the church tradition. See a video about Russian Catholics on my channel. Russian Jehovah's Witnesses are persecuted again by the state. In 2017, they were declared an extremist organization, and much of their literature, including the Bible translation, was declared extremist material. Already in the 1990s, they faced waves of smearing campaigns in the media accusing them of espionage for the US and anti-Orthodox heresies. Nevertheless, Jehovah's Witnesses' history in Russia dates back to the 1940s, and like many other social, religious and ethnic groups, they lived through persecution, deportation and discrimination. To sum up, Russian Christianity is very rich and diverse. Even Orthodox Christianity is much more than just the Russian Orthodox Church. There are many Christian churches with big congregations, significant social impact, and a long, sometimes centuries-long history. Please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. I see you all next time.